going on, everybody? You know what day it is. Horror Review Sunday. It's time to talk about Creepshow 2. This one is not directed by George Romero, but it is written, the screenplay, based on stories by Stephen King. We got a new director here by the name of Michael Gornick. I'm not sure what else this guy has done. I'm not familiar with him. Maybe I've seen some of his work and I just don't know it, but don't recognize the name. We got some Tom Savini effects in here, along with Howard Berger and Nicotero and Ed French. I saw that name and it immediately made me think, hey, Blood Rage. Just watched that movie recently. So we got great effects artists in this movie, and unfortunately they don't use a lot of effects in this movie, gore-wise. But there is some, not saying there isn't any, but when you see those names, you're like, oh shit, this is going to be filled with some cool effects, right? Not really. Now, if you watched my last review, you learned that A, I'm a huge fan of the original Creepshow, and B, we are not talking about Creepshow 3 on this channel. Because A, it's garbage, and B, I can't get a copy of it. So, that's why. Those two reasons. You know, garbage alone, that's a good enough reason right there. Alright, I'm not going to buy it, and I'm not going to watch it again unless I'm paid to watch it. But I will willingly watch Creepshow 1 and 2 any day of the week. Now, growing up, this one was probably my favorite. I watched it a lot. I remember going to a relative's house and watching it and getting really scared because of the wooden statue Indian guy. That one always terrified me. I was surprised on this rewatch to find out that I don't think this is really anywhere near as good as the first one. Like, this one is a step down in almost every area, from the look of it, the feel, the pace, everything. Like, this one, I was just kind of bored in a couple of, of the stories and moments. Like, I just wasn't into it. This one, let's just get into the negatives, all right? Yeah, this one decided to just be straight up horror, and it didn't work for me. Like, this one was almost humorless. Like, yeah, the idea of this guy coming back from beyond the grave to haunt you, the hitchhiker thing, the idea there is silly. Him saying, thanks for the ride, lady, 30 times. You could play a drinking game with this. Take a drink every time he says, thanks for the ride, lady, and you're going to end up dying. He says it so much, and it's the most memorable thing from this movie, honestly, outside of maybe the wooden Indian. The only thing that I always remember about this is that and thanks for the ride, lady. There's not a whole lot of things in this movie that I found scary or funny. Almost all the humor that was in the first one is taken out of here. They decided to get rid of the comic book feel within the segments. They decided to only do 3 segments instead of 5. And all 3 segments are okay at best. Like, my favorite one was the hitchhiker. As a kid, I would have told you the wooden Indian one, but I wasn't satisfied this time watching it. So if I had to rank these 3 stories, I would probably say hitchhiker, then the wooden Indian, and then the oil slick one. Or I think they call it the raft. These 3 stories, they don't do it for me. Like, they're not funny, they're not scary, they're not beautiful to look at. Like, all that cool cinematography and, the lighting, the comic book feel with the reds, the blues, and the oranges, all that stuff that you saw in each segment in the first one, all that's gone. I don't know why they decided to do that. So it's like this one doesn't feel like a genuine sequel to Creepshow 1. They get rid of all that stuff in the first one. The score is done by a different person, I think. And the score, it feels made for TV at times. It's very dramatic, melodramatic, and it's just too loud at times. I wasn't a fan of all this stuff. Like, everything was a step down for me. Still a watchable movie. Like, I'm not trying to act like this movie's dog shit or anything. I still, hey, decent time watching it. I don't think it's horrible, but just comparing it to the first one, everything was a step down. I wasn't a fan of all the animated cartoon stuff in between each segment. To me, it was just boring me. I just like, let's just get to the next segment. Every time it showed Cartoon Billy going to the mailman, all that stuff, I wasn't interested. Then by the end of it, there's like a Venus flytrap thing. I wasn't caring about any of that. I would have preferred to watch all that crap, live, not cartoon, like real effects with the Venus flytrap. That would have been cool to see. But all that cartoon stuff, I just wasn't digging. Like, they did that for like a few seconds in part 1 when the creep turned into a cartoon. But then everything else was like comic book panels. There was no cartoon story going on, at the beginning and in between. I just wasn't a fan of all this animated cartoon crap. And I wasn't impressed with any of the kills in here. You got basically a revenge slasher in this first segment, and all the kills were lame to me. There's a lot of cutaways, there's shadow kills. That stuff bugged me. I was like, man, why couldn't this shit be on screen? Like, if this was a gory segment, it would up it. 2 has one interesting kill because it involves like bones breaking, limbs going far back, limbs like bending, how they shouldn't. That's always kind of cringy. That was kind of cool. Some of the effects on their faces when they were melting was fine. You got some good effects artists in this movie, and they use them decently here. I just wish there was more of these awesome effects in the movie. But as for the good things I can say about this movie is that at least they stuck with the comic book open credits. While the credits roll, you still got all the comic book panels. That was very much like Creepshow 1, so at least they retained that here. The hitchhiker segment was fun. I liked the effects on the hitchhiker and even the stunts here. A lot of really ballsy stunts going on. If that wasn't a dummy and that was a real person, that's a great stunt. Like him on the hood of the car, going down the hill, crashing into trees and shit. Like that looked like a real person on there, like banging on the hood. So great stunt work here. You got some nudity, some beautiful girls in here, so that doesn't hurt. And I enjoyed some of the score, like especially the music when the wooden statue's coming alive and he like starts screaming. I thought that was kind of eerie. But that's really the only moment of the score overall that I liked. And the effects on that statue was pretty good. He looked like a real statue, and you could see him kind of like moving. Like that was a real guy the whole time, I think. I don't think they ever used a real statue. That was a man the whole segment. And he looks pretty good. All the effects on him, it looks like a genuine wooden Indian. Sam Whitemoon is the only memorable character in this movie, maybe outside of like the hitchhiker, but at least we got Sam Whitemoon here to stand out. He has some pretty quotable lines here. There ain't no dust in Hollywood. Over here, lady. I'm gonna shoot off this man's something bezish. What the hell? I don't even know what that is. Like the sub captions couldn't even pick it up. He's a memorable character. Part 1 had a lot more, of course. A lot of great characters in Part 1. That's another thing missing here was the cast. That was another step down. Part 1, every segment had, a famous person that I knew in every single segment. This one, not the same. So overall, this is a fine anthology. It doesn't stack up anywhere near the first one. It's nowhere near as good, but it's a decent time. So when it comes to Creepshow 2, if you're a fan of the first one, come into this one with lower expectations. Don't expect to be blown away. Just crack open a beer, hang out with some friends, and stream this one or rent it at Redbox. Time for the spoiler discussion. So this one, we get the Creeper back, except now he's not a rotting skeleton. He's just a creepy-looking guy, played by Tom Savini, and he works for Comet News Agency. Is that Comet, like the Comet in Maximum Overdrive? Is that what that's referencing? Or is this before Maximum Overdrive? Just saw that movie, the whole comet above the Earth. That movie's insane. Not good. But yeah, so he works for Comet. I just was wondering if that was a reference to something Stephen King did, the name of that agency. But yeah, we got the Creep. He's no longer a skeleton, so that's another step down, see? I would rather have that creepy looking skeleton again. That was cool looking. And then we get the cartoon animation. Not a fan of it. And it's made for TV, sound and score. We meet these shop owners, and it's very melodramatic. They're like, oh, we gotta get out of this town. It's drying up. We need to leave. And right before they can leave, they get robbed by Sam Whitemoon, who takes all their cash, what little cash they have, blasts them away. He's talking about his hair. He's obsessed with his hair. So, of course, it's ironic when he gets killed because of his hair by the wooden Indian. Now, did the Indian kill them because they killed his, owners, so to speak, or did he kill them because he shot the wooden Indian? Was that the straw that broke the camel's back? In this movie, we get, of course, a character with a very annoying bad laugh. That's in a lot of Stephen King movies. Like, sometimes they come back. I can't stand that type of character. There's always that character with the bad laugh. And that's, like, the only thing that makes them stand out. It's like, oh, that's the one with the bad laugh. Come here, fat stuff. Loco. Guy gets 3 arrows, one in, like, the hand, one in the chest, and then one right in the face. I thought the thing on his hat was a bullseye, which would have been funny, but it just said bullshit, and there's actual shit on the picture, I guess. It should have been a bullseye. That would have been funnier, And we don't get to see the wooden Indian do it And I find it funny that this slow walking Indian just seems to be at all these different places like that. Like, when you see this thing move, there's no fucking way. This thing's teleporting. It has to be. It gets around very quick. And then the other guy dies, and this guy I recognized. He was in Die Hard 2, Die Harder. And he was in Taken 3, he's been all kinds of stuff. Well, he won the Taken movies. So he went on to have a decent career. He gets the shadow death. He gets killed with the tomahawk, and his parents are deaf as hell. It's like you don't hear a car being smashed up in your garage. The TV wasn't even that loud. And then the other guy gets killed. It's all very quick. It's like death scene, death scene, death scene. There's no build up, there's no tension. It's just very quick. And that's another issue I have here. It's not trying to be scary, or maybe it is, but it's not succeeding. And the other guy, Sam White Moon, hair gets dragged, gets killed because of his hair. It gets scalped off camera. So that was kind of funny, ironic, haha. But we didn't get to see it, so that was a bit of a bummer. And then the guy, the Indian guy, Native American, whatever, he drives up and just basically goes, "Oh, all right, yeah, I know what you did, and I'm okay with it. You killed my nephew. I don't give a shit. He was awful anyways." So yeah, that's the end of that segment. I mean, that's all that happens. So then we get to the next segment where there's an oil slick, and these 4 teenage douchebags all drive up to the lake 50 miles away from their homes because they just want to get to this raft. Like, oh my gosh, there's this wooden raft out there that we can all just go sit on and stand on. Like, did people really have nothing better to do in the 80s? They just like, oh, let's drive 50 miles out to get to this raft instead of just going to a local pool or doing anything else. And then they leave their car running, and the car battery never dies. You would think it would. I mean, it was on for like a whole day. Doors open, lights on inside, radio on. Wouldn't the battery die or something? I'm not a car person, so that's a question. Would it die? You would think so, right? Especially older cars. And so, yeah, this oil slick, the guy sees it killing a duck, and right away he knows there's something off. And he's like freaking out, like telling them, like, come on, hurry your ass, swim onto the raft. Well, they were already like out there, so he should have just been like, hey, why don't you just go back on shore? I guess he wasn't 100% certain at that point, but if he was so freaked out by the oil slick, he should have just told him, like, no, don't finish your journey onto the raft, just turn around and go back to the shore. But then they get on the raft, and then they're just stuck there, and this is just when the segment gets kind of boring. They're just stuck there. I don't care about these characters, the douchebags, especially the men. The girls are fine, but the guys are assholes. Like, they purposely make them the worst scum on the earth. Like, one of them threatens to punch the other girl right in the face when she's freaking out. It's like, shut up, I'll punch you in your face. I mean it. And then the other guy, when the chick's sleeping, when it's just them two left, he starts like copping the feel. He's lifting up her shirt. He's trying to like suck on her titties while she's asleep. And as soon as she's like about to wake up, he quickly like puts it down. Like, oh, I didn't do anything. And then she gets eaten alive by the oil slick, not knowing that she was just getting raped. Like, she never knew. Yeah, the one girl gets pulled in, and then the one guy gets pulled down, and his leg snaps backwards, which is cool. Douchebag deserved it. He keeps like cigarettes. He keeps weed in his Speedo. As soon as they get out of the water onto that raft, they immediately start lighting up joints. With what? Did he have matches in his underwear or a lighter? I never saw him light those things, but there's smoke in them. That's just a nitpick. I'm curious, like, how the hell did he light those things? With what? If he had matches, they would have been wet. I don't think matches work when they're soaking wet. And the weed would be soaked as well. I don't know. So yeah, that's really the end of that segment. Not a whole lot happens. There's not a lot to talk about with these segments. They're very quick. Not a whole lot happens. I beat you. So, and then we get to the third segment. Thanks for the ride, lady. This woman's having sex with a male prostitute, which you don't see a whole lot of those in movies. This guy charges by the orgasm, or at least he says he should. He made this woman orgasm 6 times, he said. Then we see an It book near the bed. The woman leaves, and she's driving. She's thinking out loud, which I get. if this woman wasn't thinking out loud during the whole segment, it would just be a boring segment with a woman driving the car and not saying shit. So they either had to make her think out loud or pull some kind of Marion Crane Psycho thing where she's like thinking, like we hear what she's thinking, something like that. So I understand why she's thinking out loud. And don't smoke and drive, then this wouldn't happen. Don't drink and drive, and you shouldn't smoke and drive. This could have been prevented, lady. She runs him over. Stephen King pulls up in his truck, making a cameo. And then the guy gets on top of her car. She has her sunroof open for some reason. And she never uses her brakes, like, once. To, like, fly his ass off. Like, she's driving really fast. She could pump her brakes and he would fly off, all right? That's how life works. I love that she just keeps running his ass over as if that's going to do anything. Like, she shot the guy right in his face. I mean, come on. She shot 5 rounds into him, and then she's like, well, maybe if I run his ass into the tree 5 times, that will do it. That should do it. And then she passes out, wakes up. It's snowing now. Even though it was, like, raining earlier, there was, like, the ground was wet, and that's why she couldn't stop her car right away when she hit the guy. So it was raining that day. Now it's snowing. It's like Ohio in this movie. Bipolar weather. And so, yeah, then she gets home. She thinks it's all a dream. Was it a dream? Nope. He's alive. Thanks for the lie, bitch. Thanks for the ride, bitch. Did I say lied? He's attacking her still. His tongue's like hanging out. He starts like licking her face. She's screaming. Car garage shuts, and I guess she died from carbon monoxide. So the husband thinks she killed herself. Maybe she did. I mean, did any of this really happen? I mean, you could argue that it didn't, and she just died from the guilt. She couldn't take it. But she did have the sign on her. Like, the guy, her husband, came home and saw that. So it had to happen. So I think it really did. And then we get the Venus flytrap ending, which is just stupid. I could do without that. And is he supposed to be the same Billy as the kid in part 1? I'm guessing so. I mean, it's the same name, but we don't get to see his parents. He should be in jail for killing Tom Atkins. Yeah, if that's the same kid. And there you go. Hockey Mask Award for best character in this movie is Sam Whitemoon, because he has the best lines, and he's the most memorable character in the movie. And the Hanky Award for worst actor in this movie for me was Randy, the guy on the raft who ends up trying to molest his best friend. What a piece of garbage. And the Clap Award for best scene in this movie is when she runs over the hitchhiker again and again and again up against a tree and just driving through the forest. It's the best scene for me, personally. And the Mr. Hat Award for best kill in this movie will go to Deke. I think that's his name, the douchebag on the raft who gets his leg broken backwards and pulled down onto the raft. And the Mr. Twig Award for lamest kill in this movie will be the shop owners who simply get shot by a shotgun. I think that shotgun would have done more damage to them. Or at least I would have liked to see more damage done. And those are my thoughts on Creepshow 2. What did you think about this movie? Put all of your thoughts on this gruesome tales of horror, as it says, in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you like what you've seen, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, Auf Wiedersehen.